Hey, what's up? This is Hilltop Knowledge here. In this video, let's get into how to tackle porn addiction, how to approach it. So I'd first begin by saying, how do you know if you have a porn addiction? So what generally happens is we call something an addiction when we think it's wrong to do something. And we pretty much have tried to hold ourselves back, and we find ourselves incapable of doing so. And then we call it an addiction. But let's say you could stop it, maybe a little challenging, but you could stop it. So then there's territory where it's not even an addiction. So at what point would you say you're addicted to porn? Is it when you find yourself looking at it quite frequently? Also, what is frequently? And would you even consider yourself having a porn addiction if you didn't think it was wrong? So these are some questions to ponder. A lot of addiction has to do with labels. So if you think that you shouldn't be doing it, you're going to be more conscious of the fact that maybe you have an addiction. But you know what else is an addiction? Fuzzy. An addiction is maybe not breathing deep enough. An addiction is maybe not cleaning up your desk after you're finished. But when you don't pay attention to that as wrong, then you don't call it an addiction. So that's why I think everything is arbitrary. It's all based upon your own categorization of what you find necessary in life. And thereby you call it an addiction to label yourself bad. So my advice is don't label yourself bad, and you don't think of yourself as bad, and you won't even believe you have an addiction. Problem is, someone looking at you might say, oh, he has an addiction. That's bad. He has some kind of mental problems. He has some kind of addiction. So you're really trying to placate the public egos at large, and that's problematic. Your goal is to placate egos. So I'm not saying you should be addicted. You should look at porn. I think it's very healthy to have the capacity to go cold turkey and not do it. Not do anything that's stimulating and pulls you in. I also don't think that you're a bad person for doing it. I've been on the NoFap journey, and during that time, it was much easier not to look at porn because I already wasn't masturbating. But it came to a point where it got harder. So look at it and then, try to look away, and then that would affect me at night and whatever. But so was I addicted to porn that I had to look at it even? I don't know. It's all labels. So it's all categories that you're putting on yourself. I'm sure you can adjust to a different standard. You just have to reorganize your life. And so it's all about how your life is shaped. If you are a pedophile, let's say, a lot of videos on my channel are controversial, so I figure maybe I'll include that as well. Chances are you don't get a lot of stimulation from that. So you might be addicted to porn simply because you're looking for someone who looks at you young enough to make you feel like this is what I need. So there's all these reasons why people be addicted to it. Maybe you have no friends because of your condition, and so you feel like closed in, and that's like your only way of coping. Some people, even though they feel like they're closed in, they're still very self-controlled, and they have a different way of living their life. So it's not a black and white situation, but I'm just trying to say maybe you shouldn't label these things as an addiction. It's a need. It's a need. I was once speaking to a friend, mentor, or teacher, whatever you want to call him, and he said that he does not blame his student. He's a religious person. He does not blame his student for being addicted to pornography. And his definition of addiction is probably a little bit wider, a little bit more than other people. He doesn't blame him because when he was 10 years old, he found magazines that belonged to his parents that were pornographic. And so he doesn't blame him because if you see it once, you'll be hooked. So really what, according to him, he would say is that we're all kind of addicted to some extent because we've all seen it. We've all glimpsed it, and ads pop up, and then if you're trying to stream a movie back in the day, they used to show porn right away. So everyone's been exposed unless you had some kind of major blocking system, and that's also rare to have someone who's on top of that everywhere they go. And so because we've all been exposed, most of us are kind of hooked unless we created barriers against it purposely. And why those barriers are kind of unhealthy in many ways is because the way the ego works is it wants what it can't have. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that you can't fight this addiction. You can't fight this need that we have nowadays for sex and for to see the naked body, man or woman, whoever you are. Like, it's built into kind of our psyche is in the modern era. So if you're religious, you're going to say that's the devil's playground, you know, or you can say that's just the landscape. Is it good? Is it bad? That's relative. It depends on what you think the side effects are and how it's hindering us as a society, as a species, as a people, and so on. So the point of this video is not to label it as addiction, because the standard of addiction has changed. When you have standards of what you should and shouldn't do, that's where the addiction is based. That's the reference point to know what addiction is. But if everyone's looking at it, someone doesn't like this, yeah, he's pissed off. Whatever, don't worry about it. Because people are going to disagree with me in the future, so they're telling me to shut up. Okay, relax, kiddos. Whatever. So, my people think I'm crazy, but don't worry about it. I sense them, and they talk to me, and then they're going to feel stupid. So people think that people have to be self-honest. This is where the generation is holding. The generation is addicted to pornography, but it's no longer an addiction. You know why? Because the standard has changed. So we're going to keep lowering our standards. That's the argument they're going to make. And I'm not saying lower your standards. Do as much as you can, but just recognize that we're living in a different era. Instead of trying to fight against the current, maybe try to adapt and realize, okay, this is it. What can we do to deal with it? And, you know, is it a major setback? Is it as devastating as we believe? And you'll be able to live properly knowing that system. Right. So I think originally we said what is addiction, and the answer is that it's completely relative. And so this day and age, I would say everyone is addicted. And if you do manage to do the impossible of never looking at porn, then you're built differently. You're built to be a different kind of messenger of the universe. You're built to be someone who focuses on things that are elsewhere, maybe more intellectual things, maybe be a rocket scientist, maybe get into the minds of people without being so distracted by the human body and the human fetishes and sex itself. You know, people are wired differently, and so you may have a different role, and you probably do. I'm not against NoFap. I'm not against it. I'm actually for it. So I went through days where I was able to do it for over 100 days, and you know, even 200 maybe, I forgot. But I didn't continue because I didn't feel it was that necessary. But I do feel that it's important. If you want to get a job, you should. NoFap will be really good. It'll prevent you from being it'll cause you to be more self-controlled in your life. And so NoFap is like a good way. So doesn't this prove that if you're addicted to masturbating or addicted to some kind of action, there are setbacks to it? So I don't like to view things from the point of setbacks versus advantage, because if you're not capable and you do it, then you're going to be kicking yourself when you're not able to do it, right? So if you do take on these things, create your own standard, right? Create your own standard of what it's like with me on NoFap, I allowed myself to look at swimsuits. Some people, they don't even do that. They don't want to get turned on. They don't want to spill any seed. They don't want to do it even during the night even. And there also sometimes there's religious people that have their own beliefs, or spiritual people that might have their own beliefs, and that can influence how they feel about the NoFap journey. And so therefore I wouldn't tell people to pressure themselves. I would say do NoFap, but do it passively. Maybe even say that if you use your pillow, that it's fine. Or if you use your hand even at night and you're just not paying attention, that might work. But then you get all messy sheets and a messy bed, and that can screw you over. So I'd say, you know, even if you have some kind of system where most of the time you're keeping it, and and therefore you feel good about it. That's what I'm talking about. Whatever you do, make sure you're not going to kick yourself for it, and and then and then you'll have a fruitful time with whatever disciplinary jobs you're taking on. Okay. So that said, I'm not saying go out of your way to look at porn. I'm just saying to reevaluate what you think is bad versus not bad. And to get all, this is the spiritual section. Okay, those who enjoy this, click the like button. If you want to hear the spiritual stuff, please continue watching. The spiritual stuff is that, so the way we understand chakras and energy flow is that libido has to do with a certain type of energy that exists that's underlying the world, that could be compared to a certain drive to go on and live life and to be enthusiastic, to get stuff done. And if you're constantly wasting seed or constantly doing that, you may not have that drive. And so the embodiment of energy, different ways of understanding it, is like a living creature. It's like a snake or a dragon or fire entity. And so it gets pissed off when you're just promoting fapping all day. Right? So it doesn't care about fapping necessarily. It cares about dying. It doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to be asleep. It wants to be awakened in people. Right? So if you are not doing NoFap, that energy of drive will be less. That's just a fact. And so it could affect your income. It could affect your motivation, your job results. That's just how it is. And, I'm a self-honest guy, so I admit that. But if you're not able to do it, you're not able to do it. And so those people who can't do it, who can't seem to look motivated to people, they should get funded by the government. They're a different type of person. But we're so superiority driven that we don't want to think of it this way. So this polarity, this energy should be happy that I'm speaking, because I acknowledge that we shouldn't be hurting it. We should increase motivation in the world, but we also shouldn't be downtrodden on people who can't live that way. And so and the highest state of being is even when you don't have that energy of motivation, you yourself are happy. Don't let yourself be down because that energy is down. You're not that energy. You're both. You're all kinds of energies. So when people get depressed, it's partially because they feel like they shouldn't be doing something, but they should also be happy because they got to enjoy themselves. So don't try to ruin whatever fun you were able to have because you have a belief system that it's not ideal. So all this is my take on porn addiction. And I also included ideas on NoFap and even spirituality in here. Have an excellent day. All the best.